President Joe Biden and Republican challenger Paul Ryan. Mr. Biden aggressively defended the administration's economic and foreign policies in a bid to regain momentum in the White House race, and his efforts won praise from President Obama, who said he could not be prouder of his running mate.
A handshake and the gloves are off, with Republican Paul Ryan blaming the Obama foreign policy for making the United States look weak.
When we look weak, our adversaries are much more willing to test us.
With all due respect, that's a bunch of malarkey.
An expert on foreign policy, the vice president called Mr. Ryan out, saying he basically supports much of what the president is doing.
War should always be the absolute last resort. That's why these crippling sanctions with Bibi Netanyahu says we should continue, which, if I'm not mistaken, Governor Romney says we should continue. If I may be mistaken, he changes his mind so often, I could be wrong.
As if to make up for the president's lifeless debate performance last week, Mr. Biden was in a feisty mode.
They talk about this great recession, if it fell out of the sky, like, oh my goodness, where did it come from? It came from this man voting to put 2 wars in a credit card.
The vice president also embarrassed Mr. Ryan, revealing that he asked for stimulus money, something the Republicans slammed as a waste of the taxpayer dollar.
Well, I love that. I love that. This is such a bad program, and he writes me a letter saying, writes the Department of Energy a letter saying, the reason we need this stimulus, it will create growth and jobs. His words. No, this is
Mr. President, I know you're under a lot of duress to make up lost ground, but I think people will be better served if we don't keep interrupting each other.
But interruption was the name of the game, especially when it came to the contentious issue of tax breaks for the rich.
You can cut tax rates by 20% and still preserve these important preferences for middle-class taxpayers.
Not mathematically possible.
It is mathematically possible. It's been done before. It's precisely what we're proposing.
It has never been done before.
It's been done a couple of times.
It has never
Jack Kennedy lowered tax rates, increased growth. Ronald Reagan.
Now you're Jack Kennedy.
Ronald Reagan.
Mr. Biden's supporters are lapping up his attacks.
We called him out on the 47%, called him out on the $5 trillion tax cut with no explanation for how that was going to be done. I thought he did a great job.
But some observers say Mr. Biden looked condescending and getting put off undecided voters.
I think the president loses some points, at least stylistically, for kind of looking like an arrogant Cheshire cat back there. You know, like, oh, I know more than you.
The pressure is now on President Barack Obama to do well in his next debate if he wants a second term.
All right, we'll now cross over to Washington, where U.S. Bureau Chief Simon Martz joins us. Simon, New York Times described the vice presidential debate to be one of the best and meatiest political conversations. Lively exchange aside, do you think it's moved the needle in the presidential contest?
Look, there's no question that it was meaty, there's no question it was lively, there's no question it was substantive, and there's also no question from the instant polling that was done overnight here in the United States that most Americans believe Joe Biden won the debate. But if you talk to grassroots Democrats, as you heard in that report there, they are delighted that he brought it to Congressman Paul Ryan. Grassroots Republicans are very happy with the way Congressman Ryan responded to many of Joe Biden's interruptions and his occasionally somewhat overbearing demeanor. The real question here is, did it change the minds of any undecided voters, that very narrow sliver of the electorate in those crucial battleground states? And if it did change their minds, will their minds remain changed after the remaining 2 presidential debates? And we're simply going to have to look at more numbers before we get a sense of whether this vice presidential debate made an enormous difference.
Okay, well, President Obama, he praised Mr. Biden for his feisty effort, but how much of a running room does it give the president for his next debate with Mitt Romney?
Not much, Glenda. I mean, the truth is that Joe Biden gave Barack Obama a very vivid lesson in the United States last night about how you perform during a debate. He brought passion and energy and excitement and commitment into a room that a week ago, when President Obama first debated Mitt Romney, we didn't see very much of coming from the president. So there is now enormous pressure on Barack Obama ahead of next Tuesday's second presidential debate, which will be held in Long Island, New York, to deliver the same kind of passion and commitment, and really to be focused on getting his message across in the way that Joe Biden was during the 90-minute encounter here last night.
All right, in all fairness as well, but the next debate will have a different format. So what is, the two candidates' strategy be in this following debate?
Well, for Barack Obama, it has to be to show some energy and some passion. He's got to put that first very underwhelming debate performance behind him and persuade not just his own voters but undecided voters why he wants a second term in the White House, never mind why they should vote for him. And if you're Mitt Romney, well, Mitt Romney's got to prove that what happened a week ago wasn't a flash in the pan, that he can once again show up and give a compelling performance in a different format, a town hall format, which is something that one would think on paper favors Barack Obama, because he's had so much experience of holding those on the campaign trail this time around and 4 years ago. But that's why this is so exciting, and that's why we'll all be tuned in Tuesday night here in the US, Wednesday morning, Hong Kong, Singapore time.
And we will be covering it. Thank you very much there, Simon Mars from Washington, our U.S. Bureau Chief. And joining us for some analysis on the U.S. vice presidential debates is David White. He's an executive committee member of Democrats Abroad, and representing the Republican Voice is John Kim. He's the co-chairman of Romney Victory Singapore. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. David, let's start with you. Joe Biden's performance applauded. He came out looking very strong. Do you think that is the Democrats' strategy now in this debate?
Well, I think the strategy is to come out looking strong. If you're asking whether Biden's going to have one strategy and it's a good cop, bad cop thing, no, I don't think that. I think it's, if there is a difference, it's in their personalities. But I think Obama should have been more forceful in the past. He should have been forceful, not aggressive necessarily, maybe should have been forceful in pushing back on the mistruths and distortions of statistics and the ongoing long slurs against him as an individual and his policies. And I think, Biden was properly forceful, and I think that's Obama's got to be more of the same.
Right. Okay, John, Ryan, he's been consistent in his style of attacking the Obama administration, but is this perhaps maybe a case of style over substance?
Well, I think, there was a lot of commentary about the congressman's style in this particular debate. By the way, I think this aggressive style on the part of the vice president is very much what the Republicans actually anticipated. So just a couple days ago, I was on a conference call with David Senor, who's in charge of the debate prep for the congressman, and he basically said this, that there's been tremendous pressure on the vice president to perform, to stem the bleeding from and this kind of momentum that's been gathering since the last presidential debate. So they knew that he would come out with guns a-blazing, and they realized that they couldn't do exactly the same thing. So their counter strategy was actually to stay calm, to stay collected, to address the issues and back those up with facts. I think he went one step ahead of that. I think the congressman actually did all those things, and he actually connected with the people very much so. So, he talked about his mother and his grandmother who were recipients of Medicare. He talked about his friend from Janesville who's going to Afghanistan. He talked about his family from Northborough, Mass. that was recipient of charitable efforts from the Romney family. So I think he did a great job stylistically on top of substance as well.
All right, well, speaking of his friend in Afghanistan, what do you make of his stance on the Obama administration displaying weakness by cutting down on defense spending?
No, I think that's a huge concern for all Americans, really. Right now, the presence of America is very much being tested by foreign powers all over the world. I think foreign powers generally like President Obama's foreign policy, and they're a little bit afraid about the ensuing kind of strategy that might come from the Romney administration. It's clearly they're going to be a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more kind of engaged, I guess, in different parts of the world. But I do think that it's an issue that needs to be addressed properly in terms of America's presence around the world.
It was a distortion on Ryan's part when he blamed Obama for this huge cut, which will happen if the two sides don't come to an agreement. Yeah, we're going for a cliff, And I don't think nobody ever wanted that, but that's just demagoguery again, that they're blaming Obama for that. Ryan and his party signed the agreement purposefully to make a dire situation, to force everyone to do it. And for them now to blame Obama for cutting back, and besides, it's also true that the military has not asked for as much as what the Republicans and Ryan's budget wants to put in.
Right. But do you think then the U.S. economy can actually keep up with the defense budget then?
Well, absolutely.
The economy its current situation right now.
Well, the current economy, there's no way that the current economy is going to be able to keep up with the Romney defense budget. Actually, there's no way that the current economy is going to be able to keep up with any budget, because the economy right now is in really, really bad shape. But what needs to happen is there needs to be a decrease in taxes. America needs to become competitive again, and that economy that the Romney campaign is going to bring to the table, despite lower taxes on a percentage basis, is actually going to generate more revenue in taxes because the economy is going to grow more.
That sounds great. Apple and mother pie, just like all the little similes that Ryan mentioned in the debate. But again, no figures to show how that cutting loopholes is going to balance out.
Well, it's pretty simple. There's 1.1 trillion in loopholes. They're not going to cut all of them. Right?
Well, but the figures don't add up. That's the simple fact. I mean, we're just doing the same as the debate. You say it does, I say it doesn't, but there's never been any strong figures to show how they're going to do that without sticking it to the middle class.
Let's talk about credentials. President Obama, he's taken over 4 years ago. We've seen what's happened to the deficits. We've seen what's happened to the economy. Let's take that aside even, okay? The fact that is before that, he was a state senator. He never really had any experience balancing budgets before, okay? The governor, he's done that in Massachusetts. He took over with massive deficits and he brought it to a $2 billion rainy day fund. He did that with the Olympics. He's done that with numerous businesses across the private equity fund that he started, one of the biggest in the world. So I think that he's going to be able to do this, and it's pretty clear who the better candidate is to balance budgets.
Well, I guess, gentlemen, you're going to agree, and your candidate won. Thank you very much for joining me. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, but we will definitely be able to talk more as we know that the next presidential debate is coming up next week. Thank you again for joining me. And still ahead here on Primetime Asia.
The Norwegian Nobel